The problem with the refugees is a pure politically made problem. It's a political risk problem. Political risk is a risk which is created by politicians. That's very simple. This is not a risk of, I mean, refugees have been playing a different role in different countries. The major reason for the Russian Revolution, the first February Revolution, Professor Kebecheva left, we have been discussing this in December. The major reason for the February Revolution and then for the October Revolution were the refugees. But they were internal Russian Empire refugees. The reason was a war, the reason was some liberalization during the war and that sort of stuff. Liberalization, they were liberalized, different denominations, different tribes, different cultures was sort of needed, to go to the army. That's why they were put on equal footing. And because they were afraid of going to the army, they started moving around the country. And they created the famine problem during the First World War in Russia. This is an important, outcome of a political crisis created on the grounds of a refugee problem. But since then, I don't see such a problem, ever created by refugees in the European history after the October Revolution.
As we're talking about the role of a firm, of a private enterprise, which is, now we can use fancy words now, and Daniel Schwartz will support me here. The market is what one may call teleonomic, is it so? You do believe me? You're the philosopher. It's a very fancy word, if I pronounce it correctly, because I use it in the French way. Nobody's perfect. That is, the market is goal-seeking. It has no purpose. It's an interactional space. However, and we can rely here on Friedrich Hayek, so very much philosopher, economist. Your organization, the firm, it is purposeful. It has a goal. It is teleological. What we are interested in here is to see how, contrary to supply and demand, and that's political supply, what you're pointing at, is precisely some people who do fight for a share in the political market. That will be extremists. They need to create a room for themselves. It does not mean that demand necessarily exists. Now, perhaps we may disagree a little bit with Professor Stancic here, but this is a way of artificially generating a demand that is shifting the political spectrum towards a given focal point, which is exploiting fake weakness in the system. The real weakness in the system, has been pointed out, is not the welfare state in this specific case. It is the barriers we have on entry on a given market, and this market is the labor market. Now, it works in a very perverse way. I'll show you why. Now, you have the privilege or pleasure to reside in Bulgaria, lovely place. A couple of problems, but we're doing fine, isn't it? Now, I'm pretty much sure at least half of you are considering not working here. When I came back to Bulgaria a couple of years ago, the first question anybody would ask me was, why did you come back?
That's what they asked us too.
Good. Good luck with that. Now, why is it so significant? Well, it is significant because if we rely on, let's say, objective measure of the competitiveness of the Bulgarian economy, that would be the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index. the capacity of the Bulgarian economy to retain and attract talent is so low that we are among the 150 countries that have been monitored. We're around the 150, 110 in the world.
But it's
That
easy
is-
to pretend that you have a tower.
Yeah, we do have talent. Here it is. I'm making look. It's a compliment, huh? I have to cheer it up a little bit. We are trying to. It's a lost game with those promises of protection and further protection, regulations. So no longer the sound and fair forces of the market, which would not discriminate otherwise than by capabilities and capacities. Those are two different things. We really have to care, to be very careful when we use those concepts. But it would be a rent-seeking strategy by each and every one of us, and I'm afraid it goes down to the individual level, to motivate our, or to extract out from our political representation advantages which are on somebody else's pocket. We're constantly looking for, when we have been trained to follow this pattern of looking for a free lunch. Well, I'm afraid there is no free lunch. There is no such a thing as a free lunch. This is why I wouldn't say we're doomed. Let's keep some optimism there, but we really have to be very, very careful, and we have to tackle the problem, and we have to tackle the problem right now. It becomes urgent. You point out the problem, which is just the epiphenomenon of what is behind it. I'm afraid the solutions proposed, the solutions offered are not only morally unacceptable, but they are economically, from an economic point of view, they are destructive. They are destructive. We are destroying the very infrastructure which has provided all this wealth and all this progress and dynamics on which we base our understanding of our current life. That's a.
May I add something on refugees? Just Bulgaria, one sentence. If you take the history of Sofia, for example, from 1905 until 1930, it was growing by 15.5% of population annually. All these people were refugees, all migrants. Well, some of them were real refugees, coming with arms, and that sort of stuff. So Sofia has a record of very good practice of dealing with refugees for a very long period of time.
Shifted the focus a little bit because the topic was economic migrants, and we shifted to the contemporary issues with refugees that Europe was experiencing 2 years ago. But I want to just really quick address one question to Mr. Schwartz, and what does he think? What do you think if Europe opens the labor markets for outsiders, as they call them in the news right now? How would that fit both Europe's conservative view of having such not homogeneous societies? Non-homogeneous societies, and keeping the labor force only comprised by the nation's individuals and not foreigners, so they not take the jobs and disrupt the labor market.
All I'll say is, and I think economic migrants, people coming from elsewhere, are people who are making a real effort for some reason to pursue a better life. It's not easy to travel from country to country. So I think Europe should want economic migrants to come in because they are likely to be people who are working hard to make a better life for themselves. Those are exactly the people you want. So I don't know how that's perceived in Europe, but it's good for Europe. It's good for Europe and for any country to have people who are willing to, put that kind of effort into making a better life for themselves, that means that they're creating value, right, for everyone.
Thank you. We're going to finish on a positive side here. We're now going to proceed to having a break, and refreshments are provided just outside.
May I ask you to stay here just 2 minutes so I can go to the...
Sure.
Закончим.